Hi everybody. So I don't know if you've read the description that on the website. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do one of these little cupcakes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. And it's mainly with stuff you've got around the house. But some of the bits and bobs that I'll be using, I'll just make sure that you know what I am using. And like Claire said, if you've got any questions at the end, please feel free. Or you can email the college or leave a note on the website, on the Facebook page. So I hope you all enjoy this. It's really good of the college to offer these courses, and I'm really pleased to be teaching them today. So I'm going to angle my screen down so you can see what my hands are doing. Okay, so luckily for you, you won't have to see my face. So I'll just pop everything down if that's okay. Bear with me. Okay, so I hope you can all see this. This is my board that I work from, and it's a non-stick sugar craft board. Okay, what I'm going to use for my topper is one of these cutters, and it's just a fluted cutter that you would use to make scones. Nothing fancy. You know, it comes like in a big set, so you've got different sizes. But these are really handy for cake decorating, and you'll notice that these ones that I've got here have got quite a sharp edge, so it gives a nice clean crisp cut. So that's what I'm going to be using today. And I've got my box of icing here. Now this is just normal fondant icing. This here, just normal fondant icing that you would use to cover your cakes, normal cakes. Now what I do put inside this, just to make it firmer, as you can see, that's quite firm there on the edges. And this normal sugar paste that I'm using here, you can call it sugar paste, fondant, ready roll icing, whatever you want to call it. It's just the normal stuff that you could buy in Tesco's and ShopRite. And I add this powder in, it's called Tylo powder. And I add that in because this is really designed to stay soft so you can eat it. So it's not great for modelling. But if you pop some of this in, and I usually go for like a handful of paste and a teaspoon of Tylo powder. Okay, so I'm going to start by rolling this out, and you can see it's quite dry. If it's too dry, I can add a little bit of Trex white vegetable fat. And I want to make sure it's not sticking to my board. That's why I'm picking it up and lifting it. Okay, I don't want it too thin. I'm going to get my cutter. You could use the fluted side, or you can use just the plain side, it's fine. So I'm going to pop that down on there and cut a nice sharp circle. Just use my small palette knife just to get that off there, and just neaten up any of the edges that I've got there. And I'm going to pop that to one side. There. So any paste that I haven't used, I'm going to pop back in the plastic bag. Just going to give it a couple of twists because I want to keep the air out as much as possible. So I'll move that there, so hopefully you can still see it. So we'll start first of all with this first purple. and just roll it into like a small sausage. Now, I think this is a little bit too dry because I did put the Tylo powder in last night. So I can see by looking at that it's cracking a little bit. So I don't think this is going to roll very well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white fat. So I've got some on my fingers. This also stops your fondant sticking to your hands. So if it's quite a warm day and you're having a problem with your paste, just pop a little bit of white fat. I wouldn't use lard or anything like that. Just try and use like a vegetable fat. The one I use, Trex, it comes in a big box and it does last for quite a long time. So I'm just going to roll. So I want a nice sort of thin, quite thin. And I'm just putting the ends there with my small palette knife. Those bits pop back in the bag. Okay, what I used for this is I've just got this little, it's just a petal cutter. So I'm just going to pop that round there just so I get that nice shape, that nice arc shape. And then I'll move on to my next colour. And again, this is just a little bit too dry. I don't know if you can see, it is quite dry. So again, I'll pop a little bit of white fat into that. And you can see that it's a different texture to work with now. It is quite soft. And I'm not going to use any glue to glue these together because the paste is actually quite soft now, so it will just stick. So I want roughly the same again that I did before. Don't worry too much about the ends being neat and tidy. We'll sort those out at the end. Okay, I'm just going to take that off now because I've got that nice. So I'm going to move on to my blue. This is a good tip if you're icing a cake as well, and you know your sugar paste is starting to crack, or it gets lines or anything like that in. If you rub a little bit of white fat, the white fat, what it does is it just softens the icing, so you get your cracks when it dries too quickly. So you want a nice soft icing. So that's why you would just put a little bit of the white fat in. And also if your room's too hot, it might be that the icing is sticking to your hands and you're pulling it. It really helps if you put a little bit of white fat in. That's my blue. Green. And I've got quite a lot of white fat on my hands now, so everything's nice and soft. And obviously, if you were doing a few cupcakes, you could do, you know, as many of these as you want. You could have them all rolled up. Obviously, I'm just doing one for a demonstration purpose. But, you know, to save time, you could do, you know, 4 or 5 at the same time. Put that on there. Orange. So my orange, I didn't buy the orange. What I did with my orange is I coloured it myself. So I have the yellow, and I just put some of this icing colouring in. So these are the colours that we use to colour this fondant icing. I do use these, and I use dusts as well. The dusts I tend to use if I'm painting something, if I'm colouring royal icing, you know, the royal icing that you pipe with. If I was colouring buttercream, again, I would use this one. I mean, these ones that you can buy now, these Pro Gel ones, they're really highly concentrated, so you do only need a little bit. And I would say start off with a small amount first, and then obviously you can add as you go along. That's my orange. Just a little bit of yellow. Oh, great. That's what happens if it's too dry. So it is a little bit too dry, that, so I'll just pop a little bit of white fat in. Just want to flick that away because I don't want any of the yellow in with any of the other colours. So this yellow one is really quite dry, and I can see cracks starting. So I'm just going to pop that on there. And then finally, I'm just going to go for my red colour. That's my final colour. So I want it to fit on top of my cupcake. Now, you can take a sharp knife, kitchen knife will be fine. you use these little scalpels. I can use that, or I tend to just use the edge of my palette knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that straight across. And because the fondant's quite soft, it is all sticking together apart from the red. So I'm going to pop that on there. And I'm just going to press that down. Now, you can use a little bit of edible glue. And this is just edible glue. I use this instead of water because it is a little bit more controllable than the water, and it is a lot easier to use, but you can just use a little drop of water. This Tylo powder here on the back is also a recipe for glue, but unlike this one, you would have to keep this in the fridge, and it doesn't last very long. Obviously, it's not got the preservatives that this one has, so you would have to keep this in the fridge. I think it keeps for about maybe a week or so. So if you wanted to make it yourself, follow the instructions on here. But these pots are quite good, so, and they're quite cheap as well. So you know, that's what I would mainly use, is the glue. Just going to put a little bit of glue on there, just to stick everything in place. So I've got my little rainbow on my cupcake topper there. All these bits I'm going to just put to one side. Okay, now these are just some pens that I've got. They were really cheap. I think they were a couple of pounds, and they are for cake decorating. There are more expensive ones. Now this one here is a rainbow dust, and it's got two nibs on the end. So you've got a thick end, and you've got a really fine end. And these are really good for you know, dotting in eyes and things like that on little characters. If you want to do any writing, if you don't want to cut out letters or anything like that. But just for this demonstration today, I just thought it might be quicker to actually use the pens. So I'm just going to use one of the pens, and because I've got white fat on my hands, it's quite difficult. So if you bear with me, so I'm just going to write thank you. Now what I would tend to do is, obviously I'm rushing now because I want to show you, but I would have left that to dry for a couple of hours before I went and used the pen. The reason being is that the pen just, if you can just see, it's just caught a little bit of the icing, and it would be a little bit neater if that was dry and I could just write onto it instead of going into the icing. So I've also got a couple of cupcakes here. So I've got 2 cupcakes. Now, as you can, I don't know if you can see that one, but that's a more domed cupcake. Okay, so I tend to use 2 types of cupcakes. The more domed, and you know, neither of them are wrong. It just depends on your personal preference. And then this is a flat cupcake. So as you can see, one's domed and one's flat. And I'll show you how to ice both of them. This one here, this was a flat cupcake, and as you can see, that I've dipped that in the hundreds and thousands. So I'll just show you how to flat ice a cupcake. So I've got some nice soft buttercream, and I'm going to hold that in my hands like that. I want to protect the edges here of the cupcake case because I don't want them to come away. So I'm going to put my buttercream into the centre and I'm going to pull it out to the sides. Oops. And I've got my thumb on the top there, so it's stopping the cake coming away from the case. Okay, so I've got a nice covering there of buttercream. You can leave it like that, it's up to you. What I do like to do, so I'm just going to use this little box here, pop that in. These, nothing special again, these are from Tesco's. These are like a pearlescent colour, little hundreds and thousands, and these are just the normal hundreds and thousands. So, you know, any colours that you want to use, and I'm just going to pop some of those on the top there. Making sure that they go right to the edges. So anything that hasn't been used can be shaken off there. And then you can put them back into your hundreds and thousands put after. I've also got my piping nozzle, my piping bag. Okay, these bags come in a long roll, and they're from Lakeland. And I'll just quickly show, they come in a flat roll like that, and you just split them in two. So you split them in two like that, so you've got your icing bag, and snip the nozzle, snip the end off with a pair of scissors, and use your icing nozzle. This is a cupcake decorating cake nozzle. It's bigger than a normal nozzle that you would use just for piping. So this one here that I use is called a Wilton 2D nozzle, and these are really, really pretty. So I'll show you quickly what I would do with these nozzles. So I've already got one in my bag. So all the pressure comes from my hand here at the back, and I use my left hand. I use that to guide, and the pressure comes from the right hand. So I've got I'll quickly finish this one. I'm going to start in the centre, and I'm going to pipe out and round. Okay, because I've got a disc and I want to pop it on the top, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that on the top there. So I've not piped right out to the edges on that there. Now this one, because it's a domed cupcake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe it slightly different. I'm not going to flat ice it first because I've got that nice dome. I'm going to pop my icing in the centre, and I'm just going to swirl that round. So, and oh gosh, that's what happens when you put buttercream is too warm. You can see that I've got like a rose shape there. I'll just take that off and see if I can get that a little bit better for you. So that's your buttercream rose there.